This is Code Red.
Hey guys, you're listening to the Code Red podcast. I'm Shubh.
And this is Parthib.
And today we're looking at our mid-season review of the league table of the Premier League 2021 season.
So back a couple months ago, about 4 months ago, we did a predictions video where we try to predict what the league table would look like. We're a little far off from the mid-season. I'm not far off. We're a couple games away. Mid-season was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We're just going to review what the table is looking at like right now. So first we'll go through the top 10 of the table and then go through Shub's top 10, then my top 10, and then the bottom 10. So looking at the top 10 at the moment, we have City first, United, Leicester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, West Ham, Everton, Spurs, Villa, and Leeds. So let's take a look at your top 10. You got Liverpool, you got City as champions.
Yeah, so I have City as champions. Just kind of talked about how they have mad squad depth. Even in the absence of Kevin De Bruyne's injury right now, they're playing very well. And I think based off their form, they're easily the best team to win it. I had Liverpool going second. I think obviously coming off of last season's, they were like 33 points above United. So I think they've just kind of fallen off the season. And I think it's just a couple of rotations. You know, they need to get Mane back. Maybe bench Thiago. I think they can find the momentum, and I think they can still get second. Third, Manchester United, obviously in the restart last season, they were brilliant. I think they have kind of slowed down a bit after losing to Sheffield, drawing to Liverpool. It's been a bit slow, but if they can get the momentum back, they have been able to score goals. It's just a matter of defensive stability. So I think third place does seem reasonable for them. And then in fourth, obviously, Chelsea did have the massive summer transfer window, spending 200 million, and it has been ups and downs. I think obviously with Tuchel, they have been playing quite well. So I think Chelsea can still rise. They're not far off, only a couple points off from the top four. So I think they can still get that top four, maybe even third, depending on how the big six take their chances. In fifth, I had Arsenal taking the Europa League, which is quite far off. They haven't had the greatest season, looking like a mid-table relegation team at times, but they have been unlucky, to be honest. I mean, some of the calls like David Luiz's red card have been against them at times, and then Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, he's a ghost. He hasn't been there at all this season. In sixth, I had Everton. I think they're kind of a dark horse team this season. Obviously, under Ancelotti, they've been kind of revived and playing really attacking football, especially with Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison, and obviously James Rodriguez as well. So they're finally fun to watch after being dominated by the noisy Liverpool neighbors. In seventh, I had Leicester City. Obviously, Leicester City, you can't count them out. I mean, they're a great side. Even with a small fee, they get hardworking players, and they are doing pretty well. But last season, they were the last hope against Liverpool, and then they ended up getting fifth. So Leicester City, you can't really tell week in, week out. They're very unpredictable. Then I had Wolves in eighth. I think Wolves have also been unlucky with Raul Jimenez's injury, and they just haven't been able to get that defensive stability. I mean, French fullback Ryan Nouri has come in, and Roman Saiz has also come into the squad. Semedo, so it's been a bit like new, fresh. It's been a bit some miscommunications at times, but I think second half of the season, I think they can do better. And then in ninth place, Sheffield United. Huge, massive drop off from last season. Obviously, they lost the GOAT, Dino Henderson, coming back to United. Sheffield, their defensive stability has not been there, and they don't really attack either. It's just been parking the bus amateurly. And then to finish it off in 10th, I had Southampton. Just one more than that 9-0 defeat to Manchester United. But yeah, they know how to come back. So I still see Southampton securing a top 10 finish. It's just a matter of where between 5th and 10th, because, I mean, throughout the table, to be honest, it's very tight. Let's look at your top 10.
Right, so I had Liverpool up front. I mean, they were unlucky. Like, this season was so crazy, and I think it really goes to show just how like vital Virgil van Dijk was to the squad. Like, you can diss him all you want, say he's not better than Ramos, but he is a vital player and one of the best defenders in the Premier League. I think that really threw them off, as well as a combination of Thiago not delivering, as well as Mane and Firmino being completely off their game. Salah's the only one that's really hot right now, and not to mention they're still missing two other defenders, and Alisson's just constantly shooting them in their leg, so it doesn't really help. So it's kind of, I wasn't expected. I didn't expect it at all. But like after seeing the first match they played against Leeds, like I was like, oh, is this like the end of Liverpool? It's not the end, but it's close. And then second, I had City. Had a rough start. Started ninth this season, but I think their squad depth is probably the best in the Prem. Like, even as you said, missing KDB and Aguero, they're still able to score goals. Ilkay Gundogan is having the season of his life after showing up from out of nowhere. I think if they can just keep adding on to that lead, just adding on more points, adding on more goals, they'll be able to do well. Not to mention Ruben Neves and Cancelo has been great signings, as well as John Stones pairing up in the center back position with Ruben Neves. They've been an unstoppable pair. And next we had Chelsea. I had a lot of hype for them, especially when you got spending 200 mil with guys like Timo Werner, Hakim Ziyech, and then what's the last? Kai Havertz. Including Christian Pulisic, and Reece James had kind of his breakout season, and not to mention Ben Chilwell. That a stacked squad. Like I thought they were gonna maybe finish even first. Like I didn't want to. I was being a bit conservative with my third place, but I think first could have been possible. But I think just Lampard's tactics weren't all there. I think maybe Tuchel has a lot more experience. He's coached big teams. He knows what he's doing. So I think they can still maybe break to Europa League, but I don't think they'll get Champions League. And then United fourth. I mean, we saw how they played in the restart. It's just a matter of consistency. They're so inconsistent. One day they'll win 9-0, then give away a 2-0 lead, and just barely beat West Ham at home. It's really inconsistent. I think the defense has a lot to play in that inconsistency. We have Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof just not being able to pick up the pace and defend. That's what they're being paid to do, and I think that's what's really killing them, as well as the finishing. Marcus Rashford just has to stop turning in front of goals, and Anthony Martial and Mason Greenwood's been cold this season. I mean, the only positive is Scott McTominay is playing brilliantly, as well as Pogba, and Bruno's always going to be play brilliantly. Then Europa League, Arsenal, we had fifth. I mean, Arteta came in without much expectation. Really, no one really thought he's going to do that great. He didn't do that. He didn't end off too hot in the league, but he did win FA Cup, and everyone was thinking like, oh, first season as a manager, he'll do great. But as you were saying, just unlucky. VAR calls, burnt Leno also playing kind of dumb, discount Neuer, and Aubameyang being missing. It's really hurt them. But I think the emergence of Bukayo Saka and Tierney and Holding have been pretty good for Arsenal. So exciting to see what they can produce in the next couple of years. Leicester, as we said, like they were second. I think that 3-1 or 4-1 win back in December of 2019 really killed them against Liverpool, and they just dropped off from there. But as you said, they're a dark horse. You can never count out Leicester. The exciting brand of football that they play, you can never count them out. But I think they're doing pretty well at the moment. Third place, just 2 points off second. So they can easily make second United are always prone to slip up. So we'll see what happens. And then seventh we had Spurs. So pretty close to that one. They're eighth at the moment. And like as we said, like they did show some class at this restart. Like bagging they just barely drew against United, and then especially at the start of the season beating United 6-1, and Harry Kane and Heung-min Son were unstoppable. But it's a Spurs cycle. Harry Kane's bound to get injured, and then they're all gonna play like crap, and it's happened. Like that's what happens when you just have two players carrying the team. So I think that's what Spurs are really lacking. I mean, Dele Alli was right. That's all they do, just kick it up forward and defend. They really don't have a certain tactic, and I think that's what's really killing Mourinho and Spurs. And then next up at eighth position we had Wolves. So was he very unlucky with the injury of Ruben Neves, not to mention that the big man up front, Adama Traore, hasn't scored in nearly a year, so it's not really helping them from an attacking standpoint. But they got a lot of young Portuguese talent, mainly Portuguese talent, so they're like up and coming team. We're gonna see a lot of Portuguese players from Wolves in Portugal. We're gonna see a lot of Portugal players from Wolves. So, and I think their defense has also been pretty inconsistent. Like Roman Saiz will put in a great performance now and then score a goal, but then he just won't play for a couple of weeks. So I think that's what's killing them. And ninth, we had Sheffield. Dean Henderson really did kill them, leaving Sheffield, they've just completely gone down. They have done well. They got 2 wins in the last 5 games, and they almost just barely lost to City just by 1-0. So it's up and coming for them, but it's still going to be a hard relegation season. They're about 12 points off safety, so it's going to be hard for them. And Leeds United 10th, they blew off everyone's socks. Like, everyone's hyping up Leeds, and like, they deserve so. Patrick Bamford has been amazing. Mateusz Kilch played pretty well at the start of the season. He kind of dropped off. They have a great keeper in Meslier, and then Calvin Phillips is playing very well. In the midfield recently, as well as Stuart Dallas. So they have an exciting brand of football. I think in the next couple of years they might be able to challenge for Europa League, but I think they're just one of those teams that are now going to be like in the Premier League, just stamping their mark in it, not going down, being one of those teams that just drop down in between the Premier League and the second division.
Yeah, and now on to the less favored half of the Premier League table. In 11th, I had Spurs. Spurs obviously had ups and downs, as you said. You know, they were title contenders at one point, and then it just dropped off since. I mean, as you said, you can't really tell with Spurs. I mean, one game they'll be playing ecstatic, and then the next they'll be just parking the bus and drawing to Brighton or something. And then in 12th, I had Newcastle. Things can't be getting worse for Newcastle at the minute. Callum Wilson out until, I believe, April 10th. So yeah, their already depleted attack is gone. Now they're going to have a Joe Linton who scores like once a year.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting for Newcastle fans. And then I had Leeds in 13th. Leeds, obviously, as you said, exciting to watch, but, you know, it's at the expense of their points. You know, they'll score 2 goals but concede 4 in that same game. So it's really hard to tell exactly where they're headed in the table. And then I had West Ham. West Ham have absolutely killed it this season. I mean, they just got Jesse Lingard before, you know, Souček and Mikel Antonio, who had a brilliant restart and then has continued that form into the Prem. He's just been doing brilliantly. And I think, you know, under Moyes, they've just done fantastic, to be honest. All credits to him. And then in 15th, I had Aston Villa, who have had their ups and downs. I mean, they really seemed like top half, like top 5, maybe even Champions League because of the defensive stability they're providing. And it has toned down a bit, but I think if they find their form, then they are easily a top 10 side. It just, you know, they came out of relegation, barely escaped relegation last year, so they've really done great things in a span of a year. In 16th, I had Burnley. Burnley are always a top bottom 10 team. It's just a matter of where and if they can escape relegation. Sean Dyche has done well with most of his players leaving from last season, but I think they still need to provide more attack. Their defensive stability has been good, but it still needs a bit of work. And then in 17th, barely escaping relegation, I had Brighton, who had a great start to the season. Nearly beat United. They've beat Spurs just recently, but they have kind of toned down. Neil Maupay, their best player, has just been on and off. You know, sometimes he'll play, sometimes he won't. So that's kind of questionable as to why, like where their position in the table. And then the relegation teams, I had Crystal Palace, who obviously have been lackluster without Wilfried Zaha in the squad, who's unfortunately dealt with injuries. And I think, you know, Crystal Palace, I think they can probably escape relegation at this point, but it's not confirmed, and they just need to keep pushing through to stay in the Premier League. And then Fulham would just come for the vibes, you know. They're never really in it to win. It's just for cameos. But, I mean, credit be there. They have, at times, given harder teams, you know, a tough game, and they've made them work for those points. And then finally, to finish it off, West Brom, again, just for the vibes, the cameos. Matheus Pereira played excellent in the championship, and he's continued that form into the Prem, but it's not enough to carry this Premier League side.
Yeah, so for my bottom 10, I had first up Everton in 11th, and this has probably been their best season since like maybe like 2014 when they finished like 6th or 4th. Right before the 2014 World Cup, I remember they had a really great season. But they were kind of under my radar last year, but especially with like how well that Ancelotti's been playing. He's had experience at big clubs like Madrid and Bayern. He brings a lot to the table, and just recently they beat Spurs 5-4. So
Yeah.
it really just goes to show what great managers and a strong set of players can do for you. So exciting to see Everton. I think maybe they can get Europa or even Champions League within the next couple of years. Next, I had Southampton, had a great start to the season. We're even first at one point. Danny Ings was playing like the beast he was. Obviously, almost got top scorer last year, and he did score pretty consistently, but he's been out, as well as Yannick Vestergaard. He's been out for quite a while now. He's coming back late February. So just defensive ailments, as well as Che Adams not being able to score as much, as Danny Ings not able to reciprocate the same form that he has. He has been on the up and go compared to previous seasons, but it's not good enough to carry Southampton. So they have dropped off a fair bit. They were first at one point, and now they're 12th. So I got Southampton right. And then 13th, I had Burnley. Was a big fan of Sean Dyke, and back in 2017, they had a great defense. Obviously, he had James Tarkowski was brilliant. Now they kind of dropped off. They don't have a strong strike force up front. Like it's Chris Wood and Ashley.
I think Shea Rodriguez is his name.
Oh yeah,
Ashley Barnes.
Ashley
Shea
Barnes.
Rodriguez.
Sorry, yeah. So it's just big players up front that aren't that fast, that immobile. So I think that's what's really killing them. They don't really have too much variety in there that could really, like pressure the defense. So I think that's what's maybe missing for them on the attacking front. Then up next, I had Brighton. Obviously, their very first season back was in 2017, like for the first time in a while. First match, lost it 2-0 to City. I remember that match, but they played pretty well. Had Aaron Moy back then, but now they're just kind of mid-table team, even lower. But they have been up and going. The last 5 games they've won 3 and haven't lost yet. So pretty exciting stuff to see from Brighton. Maybe you can see what they'll do in the future. And then next up, I had West Ham. They were under my radar as well, but it was really until like the 3-3 match against Chelsea, or 3-2?
3-3 against Spurs.
3-3 against Spurs, and then 3-2 against Chelsea the year before. They're like, okay, this is a sick team, and Mikel Antonio and Thomas Suchek have provided some very good performances, as well as Jesse Lingard scoring a brace in his first debut, so that's pretty impressive from them. So excited to see what they can do. Next up, I had Newcastle escaping relegation, which I was correct about. Newcastle, they're just one of those teams that just barely stay on every year. Maybe once every 4 or 5 years they'll drop down, but they'll always stay. They're just kind of there. Everyone forgets about them. But they haven't been able to get up a good form, just losing games here and there and not able to win enough. I think that's what's really killing them. And next up, we had Crystal Palace, who have done better than I expected. They finished 13th. Wilfred Zaha, obviously just tearing up. I think the thing about Wilfred Zaha is that he's a great player. He doesn't deserve to be at Newcastle, but I don't think he'd do well. Crystal Palace, but I don't think he'd do well anywhere else in the Prem, honestly. I think Crystal Palace is like the best he can manage, which is kind of unfortunate because he was a pretty impressive talent, but losing 7-0 to Liverpool back in Christmas didn't really help them. Next up, I had Aston Villa. So Aston Villa, they were always one of those teams that I just didn't hold in the highest regards. A couple of, like maybe 5-6 years ago, they weren't the greatest, but I think Jack Grealish, Tyrone Mings, and especially Emi Martinez have really propelled them to like a top 10 team, and I think it's exciting to see what we can see from there. And maybe Jack Grealish would be a good signing for United. I don't know if Donny van de Beek doesn't work out, but it's kind of obvious that Aston Villa don't want to get rid of their best player. The next up, I had Fulham and West Brom, just a position lower than they actually are. As you said, Fulham and West Brom, they're just kind of there, come up every season, then go back down. Just not enough quality up front. Obviously, Fulham have Alexander Mitrovic, who scores every so often, but is not consistent enough, and he's a bit of a wanker. And West Brom, obviously, they don't have class. But as you said, Mateus Pereira has been great in recent games, so I can't wait to see him move up to a bigger club, maybe Arsenal or Leicester City, see what he can do there. So that was our mid-season review of our predictions that we made back at the start of the season. Let us know what you think of our predictions and how far you guys were off. We'll obviously do another review for at the end of the season, see how the end of the season turned out. We just want to do this video just to come back because we kind of forgot what we had said. So thanks for sticking around, and we'll see you around later.